My favorite Christmas present. I didn't even know it was coming out. Collected Letters of Alan Watts. It's like 550 pages. Came out in the middle of December, so someone was looking out for me because I had no idea. So I'm very pleased. Fans of Alan Watts will probably know this. I don't know if everyone knows it. Alan Watts was a minister for quite some time, at least a decade. Episcopal, Anglican, or one of those. I think they're the same thing. And I've read the first part of the book, and what's really interesting is right here is where he makes the decision to be a priest. Now, I've always wondered, why did he have such a short-lived career doing that? And I think in here I see some seeds of why it didn't last, but it's something that's always fascinated me. So I was very pleased to get an answer to my question, and also to see how he actually, made the decision to do it. And so I'm just going to read a few things. Okay, so this is where he wrote his parents 1 or 2 long letters a month for the most part, something like that. And here's where he's telling them that he's made a decision to be a minister. Now, the main thing I want to tell you is that I am planning a peculiar but important affair, which may not, after all, surprise you. At present, it's somewhat in the air, but everyone here thinks it's a magnificent idea. My work is taking a very logical course. He explains that, and then he says, for this purpose, it would be of enormous value to be a minister, and I have found that everything I want to say can be said in the Christian language. In working up this last series of lectures, I've delved fairly deeply into Christian theology and found that, given a certain point of view, the whole scheme is admirable good sense, provided you emphasize its psychological symbolism. That's interesting in light of the Jordan Peterson biblical lectures and other related responses to those, Paul Vanderklay and Jonathan Pageau. And do not tie yourself slavishly to a merely historical or metaphysical interpretation. So he's going into it in kind of a different way. I want to read this real quick. He's talking about a good friend of the leader of a movement to reconcile analytical psychology, Jungian psychology, with the church and use it in what they call personal counseling. So he had been in touch with Jung a little bit, more, I guess, as a fan. And Jung had responded to his letters. Very well thought out. One of them is a discussion comparing the mandalas with the samsara wheel. And that's in here, it's good. So the corresponding movement in England is the Guild of Pastoral Psychology, of which Jung is a patron. So that's kind of interesting. Here's another little section. I've almost reached saturation point in the people I can reach in his lectures. He was giving a few lectures a week on, mostly on Eastern philosophy, but religion in general. The people I can reach, and I mustn't stop there. While I've found church people ripe for a new version and open to it if you change the language. So now he's talking about American Catholicism. The Anglo-Catholics can put on a service which hits you in the pit of the stomach with the sheer beauty of unaccompanied Gregorian chants and 13th century rites. But their moral theology is, in plain American, lousy. Not an inappropriate adjective in view of hair shirts, but somehow all those grand symbols of Christianity have been freed from the associations they have gathered in their transit through the musty minds and soured souls. Well, that certainly sounds like the revivification of religion that our guys are talking about. Okay, now here's where I find this interesting. His parents think that either think he's rushing or they're kind of surprised that he's even going to do it. So he's defensive here. I'm very much puzzled, or perhaps thinking that he's not all that into it because they think he's speeding up the process to get it over with. I'm very much puzzled as to why you think I am taking a shortcut or going about it without deliberateness, or even why the whole approach should be so peculiar. 3 years hard work in a seminary is hardly a shortcut, and there is certainly no lack of deliberation. It may certainly seem peculiar in view of my previous affiliations, yes it does, but have I not said for a long time that Christianity is the religion of the West, and that the whole point of studying Oriental religions is to re-inform it with a certain mystical insights and techniques which it has either lost or neglected, a matter on which several priests I know are in full agreement. So it's interesting. It's reminds me a lot of Peterson infusing. Well, this is really influenced by Jung, and it reminds me of Peterson infusing or understanding the symbolism of the Bible as exactly what it's meant to be. The church can be improved, but because it contains spiritual treasure and means of life from which I, for one, cannot afford to separate myself. I have explained this position to the powers that be, making it clear that my work in Oriental philosophy and modern psychology have enabled me to appreciate Christianity as otherwise I might not have been able. And here is a critique, again, of American churches. The low churches, also the free churches, with the exception of the Quakers, have unfortunately turned religion into a matter of vague political and ethical aspiration rather than a union with God. Okay, I think that is the first time in this whole deliberation, unless I passed over another example, that he's mentioned the word God. So that's interesting. He's really going into this in a different way. He's not going into it with a commitment to a Christian God. He's going into it to infuse the church with Eastern philosophy. It's great. So I hope you guys get that book and enjoy it as well. And thank you for watching.